Quickly back to you, Kasey, as a former goalkeeper, and as you mentioned, you're always going to be paying close attention to how the stoppers do in the tournament. Let's go back to Neuer. Was he at fault for either goal to the degree where, had it not been because of Neuer's performance, perhaps Germany could have gotten something out of this?
Look, I understand the first goal. I was a little bit critical of the Japanese goalkeeper on multiple times where he just kept pushing balls out into dangerous areas. I understand why Neuer didn't push that ball further wide, because there was a Japanese player at that far post, and what he was trying to do is keep it away from him. And unfortunately, he just put it right in the path, which allowed the first one. So that's just a little bit unfortunate. But the second one, I expect more. I expect him to stand out. And look, if that ball is absolutely smashed over his head and he's unable to react, that's one thing. But because it kind of snuck in through his body, you see him turn and not be as big as he possibly could. Nobody wants to be a goalkeeper. It's such a bad position. But, at times you understand what you have to do. You have to put your face places that you really don't want to do it. You don't want to stand there and get big and take one in the face from point blank range. But that's the job. And if that keeps it at 1-1, that's what I expect from Emmanuel Neuer. And it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. It's a massive reason why somebody like Jordan Pickford keeps being selected for England, because he will do anything to stop any kind of stop. Rob, I'm reading a lot of comments from German fans on Twitter right now as everybody's speaking. Obviously, a lot of the focus is on a lack of a proper number 9 for Germany, something that's been absent for a long time for them. But there's also this thing about like this German side, so talented, Musiala, Mukoko, of course, and other players, but they're just not quite ready there. They're about 2-3 years away from being a proper title contender in a major tournament. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point, because their last two tournaments, the World Cup in 2018 and the last Euros, by their standards were so poor. The feeling in Germany is that this tournament maybe is one tournament too soon for the team under Hansi Flick, and they're looking at the next Euros, which will be in Germany in 2 years' time, as the one that they could really have a crack at. I think today is definitely a setback, because they were coming here to Qatar with no pressure. There wasn't these massive expectations on the German side like we've seen in past tournaments, and there was a feel-good factor that the last few games under Jurgen Löw, it did affect the dressing room and it affected the mood around the camp. And Hansi Flick has come in and changed all that. And there was a feeling that maybe, just maybe, they could come to Qatar, maybe fly under the radar a little bit in the way that they did in perhaps 2002, and make it right to sort of the end of the tournament. But obviously, after one game, they've been beaten by Japan. They're in the same group as Spain, and they'll be looking at that group now thinking, well, we're going to struggle to get out of it. I think they finished bottom of their group in 2018. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but certainly if you start with a loss, it's very, very difficult to get out of groups at a World Cup.
Well, let's go there. Let's stay there. Kasey, what's going to happen to Germany right now? Because Spain, to me, from the beginning, have been like this is their group to lose, right? I feel like Spain is number 1. And then, obviously, I thought, well, Germany, surely number 2. But now, I'm not so sure. What do you think?
Well, I think we saw, because we did see that match against the U.S. in September in Düsseldorf, that we knew that this was a Japanese side that wasn't going to be a pushover. We still aren't quite sure what we're going to get from Costa Rica, but in the end, I agree with you. I fully expected Spain and Germany to go through. And what I saw for 50, 60 minutes from Germany, nothing told me different. It told me that they were comfortably in control of the match. Japan was having, little moments, but really not, putting the German defense under pressure. Look, at some stage at 1-0 down, obviously Japan was going to have to open up a little bit. Talked about the substitutions that came on, but still, there's no reason. There was nothing in those 2 goals that said to me, look at that great play from Japan that broke down the German defense. It was just the German defense fell asleep, and it just, they're too good of players. They're too good of players to have that happen in the biggest stage. Look, it's one thing if in that final goal, if it's Mbappe that runs past you, but it wasn't. There's no pace. There's no out and out pace in the Japanese side. They're just a collective team that works really hard and fights for one another. And I don't know. I just think Germany took the match for granted, thought they were cruising at 1-0, lost concentration, and couldn't get it back. And lack of a number 9, lack of maybe a little bit more creativity in midfield in a team that a lot of times when Germany had possession in the final third, you had 9 guys almost inside the penalty box or within the penalty box and just outside. And they didn't do what they needed to do to break them down. And then on the rare occasions they did, they usually blazed over the bar or just wide and weren't able to capitalize. So I don't know what that's going to do for the German kind of team spirit. Do they collectively go back and understand the mistake that they made? Can they then, grow from it? Or does it kind of eat them internally? And then we see again, like in 18, losing and not getting out of the first group or getting out of the first round.
Yeah, time for Germany to do a little bit of reflection, but worth mentioning that both of Japan's goal scorers, Ritsu Dewan and Takuma Asano, play in the Bundesliga. So, there's a little bit of familiarity here against the opposition. Always.
And anytime you get to go home to your club, and you put one over.
Something tells me their parking spot is going to be taken away when they go.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.